The year was 2347, and humanity had finally reached the stars. After many long years of being alone in their corner of the galaxy, humans received a message that changed everything. The Galactic Concord, a group of 12 ancient alien species, invited Earth to join their great alliance. Admiral Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Resolute as the massive ship moved slowly toward the orbital station above Tyranthos Prime. This was the home of the Elder Council, the most powerful beings in the known universe. Jack was 62 years old with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too many battles. But today, he was not here to fight. He was here to make peace. Commander Katie Lawson stood beside him. She was younger, maybe 40, with short brown hair and a sharp mind. She held a tablet in her hands and read through the diplomatic rules one more time. Neither of them had ever met an alien before today. No human had. "Are you nervous?" Jack asked her. Katie looked up from her tablet and gave a small smile. "Terrified," she admitted, "but also excited. We are about to make history." The ship docked with a soft thud. The airlock opened and Jack took his first step onto alien ground. The station was huge, bigger than anything humans had ever built. The walls were made of some kind of white stone that seemed to glow from within. Strange plants grew in pots along the hallways, their leaves purple and blue. A group of aliens waited for them at the end of the corridor. They were tall and thin, with pale skin and large dark eyes. Their robes were silver and gold, and they moved with a grace that made them seem like they were floating. "Welcome to Tyranthos Prime," one of them said. His voice was soft and musical. "I am High Chancellor Zyrith of the Vorathan. We have waited a long time for this day." Jack bowed his head slightly. "Thank you for having us. Humanity is honored to be here." Zyrith smiled, but there was something cold in that smile. Something that Jack noticed but chose to ignore. Perhaps aliens just smiled differently, he told himself. They were led into a great hall where hundreds of aliens from different species had gathered. Some were tall and covered in scales. Others were short and had fur like animals. A few looked almost like humans, but with extra arms or strange-colored skin. All of them watched the human delegation with curious eyes. Captain Daniel Grant walked beside Jack. He was the diplomatic expert, chosen for his calm nature and his ability to read people. But these were not people, and Daniel found himself struggling to understand the emotions he saw on their alien faces. "They are studying us," Daniel whispered to Jack. "Like scientists looking at an experiment." "Let them look," Jack replied quietly. "We have nothing to hide." The ceremony began. One by one, the leaders of the 12 species stood and welcomed humanity to the Galactic Concord. They spoke of peace and trade, of shared knowledge and mutual protection. It all sounded wonderful. It all sounded too good to be true. Then Zyrith stood and presented the humans with a large book bound in leather that was not from any animal Jack recognized. This was the Sacred Compact, the document that contained all the laws of the Concord. "Every species must follow these rules," Zyrith explained. "They have kept peace in the galaxy for 50,000 years. Jack took the book carefully. It was heavy in his hands. He opened it to the first page and began to read. Most of it was what he expected. Rules about trade, about territory, about how disputes should be settled. But then he reached a passage written in golden letters at the very beginning of the book. It stood out from everything else, like a warning sign on a dangerous road. "Let it be known across all worlds and through all ages. Never provoke humanity. Their resilience is without measure. Their vengeance is without end." Jack read the words 3 times to make sure he understood them. He looked at Katie, who had read over his shoulder. Her face was pale with confusion. "I do not understand," Jack said to Zyrith. "Why would you write this about us?" We are the newest members. We are the weakest species here. Xyrith's smile grew wider. You think you are weak because you are young, but we have watched your world for a very long time, Admiral. We saw your species rise from caves to build cities. We saw you destroy yourselves in wars and then rebuild from the ashes. We saw you face disasters that would have ended any other species, and you survived every single one. He paused and looked around the room at the other aliens. We wrote this warning to protect the other species from their own foolishness. Humanity is like fire, useful when controlled, dangerous when provoked. Daniel Grant stepped forward. But we come in peace. We have no desire to harm anyone. And that is why we welcome you, Xyrith replied smoothly. As long as peace is maintained, there is nothing to fear. The ceremony continued, and by the end of the day, humanity was officially a member of the Galactic Concord. There were celebrations and speeches and promises of a bright future among the stars. Jack Morrison should have felt happy. This was the greatest achievement in human history. But as he walked back to the Resolute, he could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. "What do you think?" Katie asked him as they boarded the ship. Jack looked back at the glowing station one last time. "I think they are afraid of us, and afraid people do stupid things." Katie nodded slowly. "Should we tell Earth?" "Yes," Jack said, "but I do not think anyone will listen. They will be too busy celebrating." He was right. When they returned to Earth with the news, the whole world rejoiced. Humanity had found its place among the stars. They were no longer alone in the universe. Nobody paid attention to the warning in the Sacred Compact. Nobody wondered why ancient species who had lived for millions of years would fear a young race that had only just learned to travel between stars. Nobody except Jack Morrison, who kept a copy of that warning on his desk and read it every night before he went to sleep. 15 years passed since humanity joined the Galactic Concord. In that time, everything changed for the better. Trade routes connected Earth to dozens of alien worlds. Human colonies spread across 3 star systems. Children grew up learning alien languages in school. For the first time in their history, humans believed they were truly safe. Lieutenant Commander Sam Bradley was 34 years old when he was assigned to the colony ship Horizon's Edge. He was a tall man with kind eyes and a quiet voice. He had joined the military because he wanted to protect people, not because he wanted to fight. The Horizon's Edge was not a warship. It was a civilian vessel carrying 12,000 people to establish humanity's 4th colony outside the solar system. Among the passengers was Sam's wife, Dr. Laura Bradley, a scientist who studied alien life forms. Their 2 children, Emma, who was 8, and little Noah, who was 5, were also on board. "How much longer until we arrive?" Emma asked her father as they sat in the observation deck watching the stars streak by. Sam smiled and pulled her onto his lap. "Just a few more hours, sweetheart. Then you will see your new home." "Will there be trees?" Noah asked. "I want to climb trees." Laura laughed and ruffled his hair. "There will be lots of trees, and rivers and mountains and everything you could ever want." It was supposed to be a new beginning, a fresh start on a world that had never known war or pain. The ship emerged from hyperspace near the Viridian Nebula, right on schedule. The captain announced that they would reach the colony site within 6 hours. People cheered and hugged each other. Some cried happy tears. Then the sensors detected something that should not have been there. Sam was in the security office when the alarm went off. He ran to the bridge and found the captain staring at the main screen with a white face. "What is it?" Sam asked. The captain pointed at the screen. "Vorathan warships. At least 50 of them. They are surrounding us." Sam felt his blood turn cold. The Vorathan were members of the Concord. They were supposed to be allies. There must be some mistake. Try to contact them." The communications officer opened a channel and a face appeared on the screen. It was a Vorathan commander with cold eyes and no expression on his pale face. "This is High Commander Korthax of the Vorathan Dominion," the alien said. "By order of the Elder Council, humanity has been deemed a threat to galactic stability. Your species is hereby sentenced to extinction." The bridge went silent. Sam could hear his own heart beating in his ears. "You cannot be serious," the captain said. "We are members of the Conquered. The Sacred Compact protects us." Korthax made a sound that might have been a laugh. "The Compact was a tool to keep you docile while we studied your weaknesses. The warning in our texts was not written for us to follow. It was a reminder of what we must do before your kind becomes too powerful to stop." Sam grabbed the communications panel. "Please, there are children on this ship. Innocent families. Whatever problem you have with Earth, they have done nothing wrong." "All humans are a threat," Korthax replied. "Even your children, especially your children. They would grow up to seek revenge, and we cannot allow that." The screen went dark. Outside the windows, the Vorathan ships began to glow as they charged their weapons. Sam ran. He ran faster than he had ever run in his life. He found Laura and the children in their cabin and grabbed them without explanation. "We need to go," he said. "Now." Laura saw the fear in his eyes and did not ask questions. She picked up Noah while Sam carried Emma, and they ran through the corridors toward the escape pods. The first explosion hit the ship, and the floor shook beneath their feet. People were screaming and running in every direction. The lights flickered and went out, replaced by the red glow of emergency systems. They reached the escape pod bay. There were only a few pods left, and hundreds of people were fighting to get inside them. Sam pushed his family forward. "Get in. I will be right behind you." Laura looked at him with tears in her eyes. She knew he was lying. There was no room for him in the pod. "I love you," she said. "I love you too. Take care of them." He kissed her one last time, and then closed the pod door. Through the small window, he watched his wife's face as the pod launched into space. For a moment, he felt relief. They were safe. They would make it. Then a Vorathan ship turned its weapons on the escape pod and fired. Sam watched the pod explode in a flash of light. His wife, his daughter, his little boy, gone in an instant. He fell to his knees as the ship broke apart around him. He did not try to run. He did not try to save himself. He just knelt there, staring at the empty space where his family had been. The explosion threw him across the room and everything went black. 3 days later, a passing merchant vessel found the wreckage. They pulled 47 survivors from the debris. Sam Bradley was one of them. He wished he was not. When the survivors reached Earth, they learned the horrible truth. The attack on the horizon's edge was not an isolated incident. The Vorathan had launched simultaneous attacks on every human colony in the galaxy. The attacks were perfectly coordinated, happening at the exact same moment across different star systems. In a single day, over 8 million humans died. The Galactic Conquered released a statement saying that humanity had been expelled for violations of interstellar law. They claimed that humans had been planning to attack other species and that the Vorathan had acted in self-defense. It was all lies. Everyone knew it was lies. But the other alien species said nothing. They were too afraid of the elders to speak the truth. Earth was alone. Sam Bradley stood at the memorial service for the victims of the horizon's edge. He listened to the names being read out, one after another. When they said Laura Bradley, Emma Bradley, and Noah Bradley, something inside him died. But something else was born in its place, something cold and hard and patient. The governments of Earth unified within 1 week. It was the fastest political change in human history. Old enemies shook hands. Ancient grudges were forgotten. Countries that had been rivals for centuries suddenly found themselves working together toward a single goal: survival, and then revenge. Admiral Jack Morrison was now 77 years old. His hair was completely white, and his hands shook slightly when he was tired. But his mind was as sharp as ever, and the fire in his eyes burned brighter than it had in years. He stood before the assembled leaders of Earth in the Great Hall in Geneva. Presidents and prime ministers and generals filled every seat. The room was silent as he walked to the podium. 15 years ago, I stood in an alien hall and received a book filled with laws, Jack began. His voice was steady despite the anger that burned inside him. In that book was a warning about humanity. I did not understand it then. I thought they respected us. I thought they feared what we might become. He paused and looked around the room at the faces of men and women who had lost so much. I was wrong. That warning was not written out of respect or fear. It was written as a reminder to themselves, a reminder to destroy us before we grew too strong to stop. A murmur went through the crowd. Jack raised his hand for silence. They thought our youth made us weak. They forgot that youth also means we have nothing to lose. They thought they could break us with a single blow. They forgot that we have survived ice ages and plagues and world wars. They forgot that every time we fall, we rise again stronger than before. He slammed his fist on the podium. The Vorathin wanted to end humanity. Instead, they have awakened something they cannot imagine. They have united a planet of 8 billion people with one common purpose. The crowd erupted in applause that shook the walls. From that day forward, everything changed. Every factory on Earth stopped making consumer goods and started building warships. Every university shifted its focus to military research. Every young person of age volunteered for service. Dr. Nathan Clark was a physicist who had taught at a quiet university before the attacks. He had lost his wife, his 3 children, and his parents in the colony massacres. For the first week, he did not eat or sleep. He just sat in his empty house and stared at photographs. Then he got angry. He returned to his laboratory and began working on a project that everyone said was impossible. The Vorathin ships used a form of faster-than-light travel that bent space around them. It was efficient and reliable, but it had limits. Nathan believed he could do better. He worked for 2 years without rest. His colleagues worried about his health. His friends worried about his sanity. But Nathan did not care. Every time he felt tired, he looked at the photograph of his family that hung above his desk. On the night of the 2nd anniversary of the attacks, Nathan ran the final calculations and realized he had done it. He had invented a quantum fold engine that could move a ship across the galaxy in seconds instead of days. It was faster than anything the Elders had ever created. He called Admiral Morrison immediately. "We can reach them before they even know we are coming," Nathan said, his voice shaking with excitement. "We can be anywhere in the galaxy in the blink of an eye." Morrison smiled for the first time in 2 years. "Get some sleep, Doctor. You have earned it." But Nathan was not the only genius working to save humanity. Dr. Megan Foster was an engineer who specialized in defensive systems. She had survived the attack on the Mars colony by hiding in an underground bunker for 3 days. Megan developed a new kind of shield that could analyze enemy weapons and adapt to counter them within seconds. The first time a Vorathin energy beam hit the shield, it would pass through. The second time, the shield would block it completely. By the third shot, the shield would reflect the beam back at the enemy. "They rely on the same weapons they have used for thousands of years," Megan explained to the military council. "They have never needed to innovate because no one has ever challenged them. That is their weakness. They cannot adapt." The first new warships rolled off the assembly lines 3 years after the attacks. They were smaller than the Vorathin cruisers, but faster and more deadly. Each one was equipped with Nathan's quantum fold engine and Megan's adaptive shields. Commander Katie Lawson, who had survived the original diplomatic mission, was given command of the first ship. It was called the USS Vengeance, and its crew was made up entirely of people who had lost family in the massacres. "We are not going to win this war with numbers," Katie told her crew on their first day. We are going to win it with something the elders do not understand. We are going to win it with rage. Sam Bradley was promoted to captain and given command of a strike cruiser called the Retribution. He had spent the past 5 years training and preparing for this moment. The grief in his heart had hardened into something cold and sharp, like a blade made of ice. He visited the memorial for the Horizon's Edge before he left Earth. He placed his hand on the stone where his family's names were carved and made a promise. "I will make them pay," he whispered. "Every single one of them. For you, for Emma, for Noah. I swear it." 5 years after the betrayal, humanity was ready. The fleet gathered in orbit around Earth. 200 warships of various sizes, crewed by men and women who had nothing left to lose. They looked out at the stars that had once seemed so far away and knew that the human counteroffensive began without warning. One moment, the Vorathin border colonies reported normal operations. Everything was calm. Everything was quiet. The next moment, they went silent. High Chancellor Zirith sat in his chamber on Tyranthos Prime and read the reports with growing disbelief. Colony after colony was falling. Military outposts that had stood for thousands of years were reduced to rubble in minutes. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Our ships are superior. Our weapons are more advanced. How are these primitives defeating us?" His military advisors had no answers. They had never faced an enemy like this before. For 50,000 years, the Vorathin had ruled through fear and overwhelming force. Other species either submitted or were destroyed. There was no third option, until now. Captain Sam Bradley led the assault on Korthak Station, the largest Vorathin shipyard in the sector. It was the same place where the ships that destroyed the Horizon's Edge had been built. Sam had dreamed of this moment for 5 years. His cruiser, the Retribution, dropped out of quantum fold space less than 1,000 kilometers from the station. 30 other human ships appeared around him in perfect formation. The Vorathin defenders scrambled to respond, but they were too slow. Human weapons tore through their shields like paper. Human pilots flew with a precision and aggression that the Vorathin had never seen before. "All ships, focus fire on the main reactor," Sam ordered. His voice was calm and cold. "We are not here to capture this station. We are here to destroy it." The battle lasted 14 hours. When it was over, Korthak Station was a field of burning wreckage. 60% of the Vorathin fleet stationed there had been destroyed. The rest had fled. Sam looked at the destruction on his view screen and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no joy, just emptiness. "Set course for the next target," he said. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Human ships appeared from nowhere, struck with devastating force, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Every tactic the Vorathin tried was countered. Every trap they set was turned against them. "They fight like demons," one captured Vorathin officer reported during interrogation. "They do not pause to negotiate. They do not accept surrender. They simply keep coming. No matter how many we kill, more appear. It is as if they have no fear of death." He was right. The humans did not fear death. Many of them welcomed it. They had already lost everything that mattered. The only thing keeping them alive was the burning need for revenge. Commander Katie Lawson led her ship, the Vengeance, deep into Vorathin territory. Her mission was to gather intelligence on the defenses of Tyranthos Prime. What she found surprised her. "Admiral, they are pulling ships back from every sector," she reported to Morrison. "They are concentrating their entire remaining fleet around their homeworld. They are scared." Morrison smiled grimly. "Good. Let them be scared. It changes nothing." The final assault on Tyranthos Prime was the largest military operation in human history. Every ship that could fly was committed to the attack. 150 warships against the Vorathin home fleet of 3,000. The odds seemed impossible, but the humans had something the Vorathan did not: unity of purpose and the willingness to die. The battle began at dawn, Tyranthos time. Human ships appeared in a ring around the planet, their quantum fold engines allowing them to strike from every direction at once. The Vorathan fought back with everything they had. Energy beams crossed the void like lightning. Missiles filled the space between ships. For the first few hours, it seemed like the Vorathan might hold. Then Sam Bradley found the weakness in their formation. "Admiral, their command ships are clustered near the North Pole," he reported. "If we can take them out, their coordination will collapse." Morrison did not hesitate. "All ships focus attack on Sector 7. Captain Bradley, you have the lead." Sam pushed his ship forward at maximum speed. His crew did not question the order. They trusted him completely. 12 other cruisers followed him into the heart of the Vorathan formation. The fighting was brutal. Ships exploded on both sides. Sam felt his vessel shake as enemy weapons struck the hull. Alarms screamed warnings about failing systems, but he did not stop. He could not stop. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Laura's face through the window of that escape pod. He saw Emma's smile. He heard Noah's laugh. His weapons found their target. The Vorathan command ship erupted in flames. Within an hour, the enemy fleet was in chaos. Without coordination, their superior numbers meant nothing. Human ships hunted them down one by one. The orbital defenses fell next. Then the ground assault began. Katie Lawson personally led the attack on the Elder Council's citadel. She had not held a weapon in 15 years, but she remembered how. Her forces fought through wave after wave of Vorathan defenders. The aliens fought bravely, she had to admit. They were not cowards, but they were not fighting for anything real. They were fighting because they had been ordered to fight. The humans were fighting for their dead. There was no comparison. The citadel doors finally gave way after 6 hours of continuous assault. Katie led her soldiers through the halls of power where the fate of the galaxy had been decided for millennia. They found High Chancellor Xyrith waiting for them in the council chamber. He was alone. His advisors had fled or been killed. He sat on his ancient throne and watched the humans approach with tired eyes. "You have proven the warning true," Xyrith said. His voice was barely a whisper. "Humanity cannot be provoked without consequence." Katie walked up to him slowly. Her uniform was torn and bloody. Her face was covered in dust and sweat, but her eyes were clear. "The warning was meant to protect you from us," she replied. "But you chose to ignore your own wisdom. You thought you could destroy us before we became a threat. Instead, you created the very thing you feared." Xyrith lowered his head. "What will you do with me?" "You will stand trial for your crimes. You and every other member of the Elder Council who participated in the attacks on humanity. You will face justice." For the first time, real fear showed in the ancient alien's eyes. Justice or revenge? Katie thought about that question for a long moment. She thought about all the people who had died. The war ended not with a treaty, but with complete surrender. The Vorathan Dominion, which had ruled a quarter of the galaxy for 50,000 years, ceased to exist as a political power. Their fleets were destroyed. Their colonies were occupied. Their leaders were in chains. But humanity surprised everyone, including themselves, with what they did next. They did not seek revenge against the civilian population. They did not burn cities or massacre the innocent. When Vorathan children looked up at the human soldiers marching through their streets, they did not see monsters. They saw tired men and women who wanted the fighting to stop. Admiral Jack Morrison addressed the remaining members of the Galactic Concord from the orbital station above Tyranthos Prime. The station had been rebuilt and renamed Memorial Station in honor of the 8 million humans who had died. The alien representatives watched him nervously. They had stayed silent when humanity was being destroyed. They had done nothing to help. Now they expected to face the same fate as the Vorathan. "I know what you are thinking," Morrison said. His voice was tired, but firm. "You are wondering if we will come for you next. You are wondering if our revenge will spread beyond those who attacked us." He paused and looked around the room. He was 82 years old now. The war had aged him even more, but he was still standing. He was still fighting for something. "We did not ask for this war," he continued. "We came to the stars seeking friendship and knowledge. We were met with betrayal and slaughter, but we did not allow that betrayal to define us. We are not murderers. We are not conquerors. We responded not as monsters, but as humans." The room was completely silent. "We offer you a choice today. Join a new alliance built on genuine equality and mutual defense, not a coalition where the strong prey on the weak, not an empire where ancient species decide who lives and who dies. A true partnership among equals." He placed his hand on the podium. "Or stand alone. We will not force anyone to join us, but we will also not forget who stood with us and who stood against us. Choose wisely." One by one, the alien representatives voted. Most chose to join. They had seen what humanity could do when provoked. They did not want to be the next target. The Terran Accord was born that day. It would grow to include over 30 species within the next decade. For the first time in galactic history, young species had a voice equal to the ancient ones. Captain Sam Bradley watched the ceremony from the observation deck of Memorial Station. He stood alone, his hand resting on the small metal plaque he carried everywhere. The names of his wife and children were engraved on it. A young ensign approached him carefully. Her name was Amy Chen, and she had joined the fleet right after graduating from the academy. She had been born after the war began and had never known a galaxy at peace. "Sir, may I ask you something?" Sam nodded without looking at her. "Was it worth it?" she asked quietly. "All the fighting, all the death. Do you think it was worth it in the end?" Sam was quiet for a long time. He thought about Laura's smile on their wedding day. He thought about holding Emma when she was born. He thought about Noah's first steps. Then he thought about the Vorathan ships surrounding the horizon's edge. He thought about Korthax's cold voice announcing their extinction. He thought about the escape pod exploding in a flash of light. "Nothing can bring back what we lost," he said finally. His voice was rough with emotions he had kept buried for years. "No amount of victory can fill the empty place in my heart where my family used to be." Amy lowered her head. "Then why did you fight?" Sam turned to look at her for the first time. She was so young. She had her whole life ahead of her. She would grow up in a galaxy where humanity was respected and protected. "Because of you," he said. "Because of every child who will be born into this new world we have created. The Vorathan wanted to end our species. They wanted to make sure no human child would ever grow up safe. We fought so that would not happen." He looked back out at the stars. Perhaps that is the only victory that matters. Not revenge, not conquest. Just making sure the next generation has a chance to live. Amy nodded slowly. She did not fully understand yet. She was too young to understand, but she would remember this conversation for the rest of her life. Below them, the ceremony continued. Treaties were signed, hands were shaken. A new era began. The sacred compact was rewritten that day. The old book with its false promises was burned. In its place, a new document was created, one based on truth instead of deception. At the beginning of the new compact, a passage was inscribed in golden letters. "Let it be known across all worlds and through all ages. Humanity offers its hand in friendship to all who seek it. They will trade with you fairly. They will defend you without question. They will welcome you as brothers and sisters among the stars. But those who raise arms against them should remember the fate of the Vorathan and despair." Commander Katie Lawson read the words aloud during the closing ceremony. Her voice rang through the great hall and echoed across the station. "We do not want war," she said when she finished reading. "We never wanted war, but we are not afraid of it either. We will protect ourselves and our friends with everything we have. That is our promise. That is our warning." The alien representatives bowed their heads in acknowledgement. The message was clear. Humanity had proven itself. No one would underestimate them again. That night, Admiral Morrison sat alone in his quarters. He was retiring from service the next day. His work was done. He had led humanity from the edge of extinction to the center of galactic power. He pulled out the old copy of the original Sacred Compact that he had kept all these years. He read the warning about humanity one more time. Never provoke humanity. Their resilience is without measure. Their vengeance is without end. He smiled sadly and closed the book. "You should have listened," he whispered to no one. "You should have listened to your own words." He placed the book in a drawer and looked out the window at the stars. The elders had warned the galaxy about humanity. They had feared what humans might become. So they tried to destroy them before that potential could be realized. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous than they ever imagined. They had awakened a species that would never forget and never forgive. A species that would cross the entire galaxy to protect its own. A species that would burn worlds to keep its children safe. They had awakened humanity, and the galaxy would never be the same. Morrison closed his eyes and thought about all the people who had sacrificed everything to reach this moment. The soldiers who had died in battle, the scientists who had worked without sleep, the families who had said goodbye to loved ones knowing they might never see them again. They had all played their part. They had all been heroes, and now, finally, they could rest. The war was over. Peace had come to the stars. And humanity had found its place among them, not as servants, not as victims, but as equals, as survivors, as humans. A thought about the families torn apart, the children who never grew up, the dreams that had been destroyed. "Perhaps there is no difference," she said finally. "Perhaps you should have thought about that before you murdered 8 million innocent people." She signaled her soldiers. "Take him." The war for Taranthos Prime was over. The Vorathan homeworld had fallen. But the war itself was not finished. Not yet. There were still debts to be paid. Stance no longer mattered. Admiral Morrison gave the order from his flagship. "All ships, engage quantum fold engines. First target, the Vorathan border colonies. Show no mercy. Take no prisoners. Let them learn what it means to provoke humanity." The ships vanished in flashes of light, crossing thousands of light years in an instant. The Vorathan had no warning. One moment their colonies were peaceful. The next, they were burning. The war had begun, and humanity intended to finish it. He looked up at the stars that had once seemed so full of promise. Now they looked different. Now they looked like targets. The Vorathan had warned the galaxy never to provoke humanity. They should have listened to their own warning. Because Sam Bradley was not the only survivor with vengeance in his heart. There were millions more just like him across the planet. Fathers who had lost children, mothers who had lost families, children who had lost everyone they loved. And all of them were thinking the same thing. The elders would pay for what they had done, every last one of them. He knew in his heart that those words were not written to protect humanity. They were written to remind someone of something they planned to do. And that scared him more than anything he had ever faced in his long life. But time passed, and nothing bad happened. The fears faded, and hope took their place. Humanity believed they had found friends among the stars. They had no idea how wrong they were.